and welcome to the book launch of Circular Strategies for Success by Anne Raudaskoski. This is also an official side event of World Circular Economy Forum 2025, and I'm your host, Suvi Koivusalo. So we've got a lovely and interesting program. Tonight we've started with opening words by Lauri Tuomi. Then we get to talk with the actual author and dive into understanding why this book was written and what's in there. And then a bit later on, we have a panel discussion and 4 very renowned panelists joining us to explore how to transform your R&D process from linear to circular. So welcome aboard everyone there attending online and here in person. Very lovely to see all of you here. But now, without further ado, let me introduce the CEO Lauri Tuomi of Professional Publishing for the opening words. Welcome.
Thank you, Suvi. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here in Helsinki and on stream, and also, of course, dear Anne. So I'm happy to bring our welcome words from Professional Publishing Finland Limited. Our company is a Finnish-based company specializing on non-fiction books that highlights the author's experience and expertise, with a strong foundation in research-based knowledge. So my name is Lauri Tuomi, and I'm honored to bring the publisher's greetings to the launch event of Circular Strategies. Together with my business partner, Dr. Ritva Laakso-Manninen, we founded this company a couple of years ago, and we also have the background of being author of non-fiction books and also from science. And we also understand the challenges authors face when trying to get their manuscripts published. Our goal is to build close partnerships with collaboration with our authors. Our areas of focus in publishing include, among others, leadership and management, change management, circular economy, as it's today, the theme of the book, educational leadership and foresight. We publish both traditional printed books and e-books. And also, recently, we launched a new product line called mini books, which serve as concise handbooks on specific themes. And also, the languages we use in our publications are Finnish, English, and Spanish. And we are really delighted to welcome Anne's book into our collection. Its theme is highly relevant, and the author has approached it from a publisher's perspective in a way that aligns perfectly with our content vision. The book is rich in concrete insights, reflects extensive expertise in the field, and it's grounded in research. At this moment, I would like to thank my colleague, Dr. Ritva, for the editorial work, and also warmly congratulate you, Anne, on creating such an outstanding book. I already told to Anne that when I received the first printed book, freshly printed book, I initially decided to only skim a bit a book and take a look on it. But soon I actually realized that I actually have written at least half of the book without a break. I was completely hooked. And I really hope that you everyone will be hooked with the content. I think this speaks about Anne's ability to engage readers with circular economy topics in a insightful and compelling way. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you an enjoyable reading experience with this book. It's available for purchase on our online store, and also today in our shop. I'm a bit sweaty because I built the shop quite recently. So welcome to take a look at on our shop, and it's excellent book. Warmest congratulations, Anne. I wish you all also a wonderful event today, especially the book launch event. And yes, and also I would like to invite Anne to the stage for a second. Just a moment. We usually start our book projects on a cafeteria in Helsinki usually, and we used to have a cup of coffee and or tea, and then we discuss the ideas of the books. And we would like to give this very special and unique mug to you, Anne. And this is a symbol for the next collaboration with us, and hopefully the continuity of your other role here in I would say in global perspective. And we really would look your new books and also this book which is today published, Circular Strategies, also hopefully in Spanish. So congratulations and thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Lauri, Tuomi. Anne, you can stick with me on the stage now. Can you grab the microphone maybe? Do you want to hold on to the mug, or maybe we'll place it there?
Yeah. So
okay,
we can see.
Lovely. And now it's time for the author interview, and we might have a bit of a moment for audience questions in the end, depending on how long answers you give to me now. But I think we'll start off by asking, why? Why did you decide to write this book?
It's always good to start with why. I think there are three reasons why I wanted to write this book. First one is the market transition. I mean, the EU has decided that the circular economy will be the only economy in the future. There's lots of legislation coming up, and the rest of the world is following us, following our lead. So we just need to transition to circular economy simply because we have finite resources. So that's the only option. So that's one reason. The other reason was that there's a lack of know-how by and large in businesses that how to transform those kind of circular economy principles into kind of business development. There was also a recent study that showed that the kind of biggest bottleneck in furthering circularity in businesses is the lack of know-how, that we don't know how to move on. So that was the second reason, that I wanted to provide tools which could be used in companies. Then the third reason is that I've been working as a circular economy consultant for nearly 12 years now. And I've seen and I've got to experience these beautiful moments when business leaders realize that there's actually a better way of doing business. And that's what circular economy provides us. So it's really much more meaningful way of doing business, that you can combine business success and do it in a way that it also benefits the planet. So those two are not contradictory, but they can be actually aligned. And I wanted to provide that experience and those tools, those insights to all business leaders so that they could start sort of acting today.
Was there any of that, like, I want to be an author?
Yes and no. I mean, James told me that when we met 10 years ago that, I already then told him that, one of my biggest dreams is to write a book. So in a way, it has been there at the back of the mind for such a long time. But then 15, 16 months ago, it came like a very clear sign that, okay, now it's the time. Now I'll do it. And here we are.
And you briefly also already mentioned what the book is about, sort of, or these different themes. Can you dive a little deeper? What is the book about?
In one sentence, it is a compass. It is a compass through different stories, case examples, insights, facts and figures, of course, and tools. And it's a compass to basically helping you to navigate that. How do you transition and transform your business from linear to circular? When we dive a little bit deeper, so then we get the circular design framework. So basically, it's the framework that I've been developing since 2016. We have these high-level circular economy principles that are kind of the foundation. They are something that, are permanent. But then you need a solid framework. You need a systematic approach when you start applying circularity into your business. And that's why we started developing and testing it with the clients that, okay, how do you do it? Now, basically, when I talk about this circular design framework, it's like a triangle. It's in the shape of a triangle. So one corner is business, and it's about business design. What are those strategic decisions that you need to make in order to further circularity? How do you make money through circularity? How do you reorganize your value chain so that you start bending those lines into loops? So that's one corner. Then you got the product corner, which is all about product design. So what are circular product features? What are materials and chemicals that you should be using so that you can call your product circular and it can circulate in a safe way and it can be reused in a safe way. The third corner is about customer experience. So obviously, we've all been grown up in a kind of take, make, waste in a linear world, which basically means that whatever we do, whatever we manufacture and buy and use ends up as waste. It has one endpoint. It ends up as waste. I mean, that's an awful waste of resources and intelligence and all that design work that has gone into that product. But when we want people to start choosing circular products or circular product service concepts, they need to change their behavior. So how do you do it? It's not about teaching or sort of lecturing about them, because people are people, we have our lives, or, we have a million things in life. We want to have easy options. So how do you develop your offering in such a way that it's easier to choose, that becomes a number one choice? And how can you as a designer kind of ease people into that new behavior rather than kind of trying to push them into that? So that's what the third corner is about. And then the last thing, kind of combining or bringing together all these three different corners, so business, product, and service, is natural ecosystems. So we all know that we live in a finite planet. We have a limited amount of resources. And we'd rather want to do business in a way that improves the state of those ecosystems. And I think, just to wrap up, I think that it's important to understand that those natural ecosystems are not just something that is out there, but it's actually the very foundation of your business, because they provide the raw materials that you need in order to design and make your products. So they're very relevant to your business. And that's what the kind of one part of the equation, or the fourth kind of a corner, is about.
Love the corners.
Yeah.
And especially the third one, that you gotta make it easy.
Yeah.
to choose, make that choice.
Yeah.
And then we'll make it. But also you mentioned that there are many cases introduced in the book. And I was wondering, was it hard to choose the cases, or was it sort of evident, like, okay, these are the ones I want for this book?
It wasn't, because it all happened very organically. I was kind of searching, browsing. Of course, I knew for example, from our fantastic clients that there are many superb cases out there. But at the same time, I was announcing that I'm writing a book. Anyone interested in sharing their story? And people were. So it was lovely. And we have lots of people who shared their stories here tonight with us. So it was lovely to kind of do the there was not that much of selection, but it kind of went. And of course, I wanted to have a global reach and have kind of diverse sectors represented. So in the end, it was quite sort of, it went, and I went with the flow. Yeah.
That sounds good. Go with the flow. Well, we all know that thousands and thousands of business books are published every single year. So why do you reckon? Why should people read this one?
That's a good question. Why should you read this book? I think that a lot of business books focus on internal operations of the business. So they look at the business, but they don't look at the planet. And I think what differentiates my book from the other ones is that this brings these two aspects together. It kind of provides the insights and tools, and it also provides hope, which I think is super important to business leaders, and makes it into a very concrete package. And that's why I wanted to, it was evident from the outset that I want to interview people and hear their stories to make it as concrete as possible, and also inspiring that, hey, they've already done it, you can do it too. So having those two, like, this is my business, this is the planet, this is how we do it.
Simple.
Yes. I mean, it is at the end of the day. Yeah.
At the end of the day, maybe. After reading the book, it should be, I guess.
Absolutely.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Now is your chance to shine and ask a question from the renowned author, Anne Raudaskoski. Anything in mind? Doesn't need to be anything shiny. It's fine if it's just a simple question.
Or anyone online.
Oh, that's true. Well, I'm actually gonna, while everyone's thinking about their question they are gonna ask, I'm gonna actually ask about the actual process. So where did you write? How was the process? Did you have like a schedule for yourself, or how did that work?
I was writing it in our motorhome and basically everywhere. I was working 3 days a week and then writing 2 days a week. So that was kind of the routine that I had over the past year. I was really much looking forward to those writing days because it kind of provided me an oasis of calmness and sort of peaceful moments. And it also served as an excuse to read all those books and those reports that had been sort of on my table for such a long time. And then I think I was always waiting because lots of sort of more experienced authors told me that, you know, there will be this very tough moment and you just need to get through it. But, you know, there will be some really rough moments. And I don't know, I don't know, maybe I missed something, but it didn't happen. I didn't experience that. I literally loved every single moment of writing. And of course, because I had so much material from the interviewees, fantastic material. So I was just like, okay, placing it here. And yeah, I think it was marvelous. I want to do it again.
Sounds like it. Lauri, hello, CEO. Little hint here. Yes, please.
I did not have the opportunity to look inside, but Anne, do you think your book is easy to read? So is it also for people who do not have like a business or management background?
That's a very good question. Although the target audience obviously is business people, R&D people, and people sort of working on the customer experience, I chose to write it in a storytelling style. And I think that, my sincere hope is that those stories will capture your attention and catch your attention and kind of work as a gateway to introducing you those topics and terminology that may not be that familiar to you. So I hope that even those ones not working in businesses would be interested in hearing different stories. And I've also, not just the interviews, but I've also collected from various parts of life, sort of trying to kind of create analogies and kind of bridge gaps, what might make the topic more familiar to you.
Sounds good. I think we had, yes, oh, they've got all these questions now. I think, we might only have time for one. Let's start here, depending on how long answers you give. Please.
Well, I was wondering now, after all the theory you had in your mind, and now you heard all the great stories, that when you walk around and you go for a coffee shop or you do some shopping, that do you see a lot of missed opportunities? Like, did it open your eyes and you see all these great things that we as a humankind could do?
Missed opportunities. Maybe, of course, the writing process kind of sort of gives you a different lens, if I could just put it that way. I would call them opportunities rather than missed opportunities. But yeah, I mean, as I say it in the book, that we're only at the beginning. I mean, there's, it's a fact that we live in a linear world and we're making great start. You are making great start and, you've been doing it. But I think that there's just, once you start understanding the circularity and applying those principles, I think that it's like a totally new horizon, and that's why it's so super inspiring.
Great.
Thank you. And I think we're going to leave the other questions for later this evening.
Yeah.
Because it is time for us to move on to our panel discussion.
Yes.
So thank you, Anne, and congrats
Thank you.
again. And now it is my pleasure to invite 4 panelists on the stage, and they're all renowned circular experts. And the topic is how to transform your R&D process from linear to circular. And you might also have a chance to ask questions after the panel. So let me first introduce Mr. Olli Kuismanen. He is a serial entrepreneur and innovator. Yes, just come on stage. He's a serial entrepreneur and innovator. Olli has been responsible for developing PAM Turbo Air as a Service business since its inception in 2017. Currently, he works to help customers become sustainable by helping modernize industrial operations with no capex usage, sharing the available energy savings and waste heat reuse in compressors and high-temperature heat pumps. That's many things. And then online, we've got, I believe, Barry Wadilove. You get to see them online very shortly. And Barry has 30 plus years of experience in design and sustainability with brands and organizations across 25 countries. Most recently, Barry has been working for the Swedish consumer electronics company Electrolux Group as head of circular economy and partnerships. He is also currently supporting the UK Design Council's Design for Planet initiative as a sustainable design expert. Okay, 2 more to go. And then on the stage with me, please, Jean-Christophe Almira. Sure. And JC here is a seasoned product and technology leader with more than 22 years of experience in a global environment, living in China, the US, and Finland. He has worked as product and technology executive for Kone for over 20 years. And JC has led complex physical and digital transformation journeys, employing agile methodologies to drive innovation and operations efficiency. Am I right? I'm correct. Thank you. And then secondly, online, we've got Malva Karlsson. Välkommen. Malva Karlsson is leading regeneration work at Houdini Sportswear. Malva is working with the Houdini ecosystem and the journey towards circular and regenerative. Houdini Sportswear are outdoor company based in Stockholm, Sweden, pushing the boundaries of how outdoor clothing is made. And now let's hope they're available online. Yes, they are here. Welcome, Malva and Barry. And now let's start this amazing hybrid panel. And I'm going to start with you, Barry, first with a question. So when embarking on a circular R&D journey in a company, where and how do you actually begin?
Sure, yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. I'm dialing in from London, but it's a great question. I think circular design requires that you really explore the challenge subject in a much more systemic way. So at Electrolux, for example, rather than focusing on the product itself, such as a refrigerator or a washing machine, we try to design research explorations that look at the wider ecosystem that that product sits within. So, for example, on the refrigerator, instead, we did a whole project around the subject of sustainable food. And to do that, we might talk to supermarkets, we might talk to restaurants, food manufacturers, along with other experts, of course, such as academics and consumer specialists. And for washing machine, instead, we might look at clothing as a much broader subtopic and talk to fashion brands or recyclers, online marketplaces such as Depop or Vinted, really trying to understand how the marketplace for clothing is changing and how people extend the life of their clothes. Only by looking at the whole system can we then understand where our products sit within that system and look for potentially circular solutions through new services, collaborations, or partnerships in some cases, with some of the companies that we would talk to. And in addition to that, circularity is also quite a different subject for the company itself. For Electrolux, we were 100-year plus old company, so we have a lot of legacy about how we do business. And looking at circularity, it can't just be led by the design department alone. You really need to find a targeted team of individuals, including finance, procurement, sales, brand marketing, and all of these individuals need to be trained in circular business practice so that they can inspire the company leadership to consider routes to new revenue and to give credibility to those business models.
It really sounds that you're sort of diving into finding new stakeholders and really sort of new partners.
Partnership is key in circularity because it's a system solution. It doesn't just stop at the factory door in the old way that we just used to push product out. It has to be an enduring solution where people use the products for longer and there's much less waste in the whole system. So you need a service to support that whole system. But of course, for a brand, that means that the brand can endure, which is a real positive in supporting, strengthening the brand over time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Barry.
Sure.
Now let me ask a question from Olli, and about this air as a service thing. So why did you start designing compressed air as a service, and how does your compressed air as a service model work for your customers?
Okay, good, difficult question. Why did we? Maybe a little bit of background. So the air as a service, and actually my whole background is from product as a service. So I'm not a specialist in circularity yet, but after I read the book, I'll maybe get there. And quite big machines. So compressor we're talking about is weighs 3 tons and is 2 by 2 by 3 meters. Quite a big chunk of machine that costs several hundreds of thousands. And TAMSurbo developed a new type of compressor technology, which wasn't very familiar to customers at first, of course, because it was used in other applications, but not in compressed air at that point. And the customers had been used to buying from practically two, well, at the time there were 3, but 2 of them merged, so 2 big international companies, their compressors. And there had been already attempts to go for air as a service previously, but the old technologies of compressors are quite maintenance or service intensive. So it really doesn't, the cost of a cubic meter of air looks really expensive if you count all of the money that actually goes to it. So it never really took off in this sort of lower technology class. But as TAMSurbo being at that time a startup and competing with this 100-year-old, there's a Swedish big company, by the way, Malova, that we are mostly competing with, that have a long relationship with the customer. So there needs to be a kind of a bold decision by the customer to go for some space technology from a Finnish startup instead of the same gray box that they had always used. And so air as a service was already been trialed in lower kind of air quality classes and smaller compressors. So then to make it easier for the customers to go with our new technology, we gave them a deal, okay, just start using it. And then 6 months later, you can either purchase it or you can start paying for the air. And of course that lowered significantly their risk. And that's actually, for me, the key in the as a service business models is that it's a risk and reward sharing. In the long term, the compressors will be more expensive than if you buy them and make minimal maintenance. But at the same time, you in the case of TAMSurbo, the customer saves energy, so the compressor uses less electricity. And then we also realize that as the technology also recovers energy in heat, because anytime you compress air, 90% of that goes to heat, and in the old world everything just went to the sky. So we realized that we can actually start selling the heat as well. So we're selling the compressed air, and then we're selling the heat that we recover in the process, which actually, if you're really honest, the customer already paid for it once, but they're happy to pay for it twice.
So wait, are you selling the heat to the same customer?
Yes, to the same customer. Of course, we then lower the price of cubic meters of air to make it fair for both. But that was the reason why we started with it, and actually has been a significant, because that's a way for us to show and visualize to the customer the benefits of the technology. You get heat, you get less electricity consumption, and we get paid only if that happens. We don't get paid if the compressor just sits there or isn't efficient. So kind of in that way, we're taking the risk of that process from the customer. Was that an answer to your question or some other question?
I think it was an answer to mine and several others, maybe. But thank you so much, Olli. And now we'll hop back or go back to Stockholm and Malva Karlsson. So can you tell us about Houdini's vision and your circular design principles. So how do they guide your everyday work?
Yes, absolutely. So it's a pleasure to be here, even if I'm online. So Houdini have been designing for circularity since 2001 with nature as the blueprint, because how we look at it is that nature has this perfect system of circularity where nothing goes to waste and where it's sharing feedback loops with each other. So how can we create that in a company? So it's about everything from what kind of fibers we are putting into the product, what kind of materials we're putting in there, and how the product is designed to be used for a long time and to be loved by many. And also business models that are circular so that you can actually rent or subscribe to your outdoor gear. And then in the end, when the garment has been loved and used over and over again, it also has the possibility to actually be recycled and circulated. And as we heard before, it's also about, okay, these feedback loops and partnering up with others, because that's when we can truly become circular. And in the bigger vision, we want to create this maximum experience for users because we are outdoor lovers. We want to be out there in nature. And that's why we also care for nature. So how can we create maximum experience, but with zero impact, and also go beyond and create a positive impact? So these are the values that are guiding us in the everyday work. And also we have very strong circular principles. For example, we have a designer's checklist that when we are creating a product, we always go through our design checklist. So creating a new garment, the first question is, does this deserve existence? And then it goes on with, will it age with beauty? Is it possible to rent or recycle, and so on? So always starting with the design, which is a super powerful tool. And in addition to this, we are also taking in the planetary boundaries as our guidance. So looking at all of the planetary boundaries when we look at the impact of the company. So to create this holistic and circular approach.
Sounds great. Malva, can you tell me a little bit more about the feedback loops? How do they work? Like, do people you meet in person, or how often does that happen?
I think the feedback loops is, as I said, part of this. If you look at nature, there's a lot of feedback loops from everywhere. So how can we replicate that into a company? And it could be feedback from our users on how the product can be improved, or it can be feedback from other stakeholders in the value chain. How can we improve the production of a garment or a product? So the feedback loops are everywhere, and they're essential for circular business, I would say.
And it sounds like they're continuous.
Yes,
happening
exactly.
all the
We
time. Yeah.
can always
Thank you
learn.
so much. Thank you so much, Malva. And now back to JC now. Well, first time maybe asking a question from you. So, JC, what are the most critical success factors on a journey towards circular from R&D perspective?
Well, there are a lot, I think, so
Okay.
to say. Probably a little bit of context about, let's say, about my background. That would
Please.
explain,
Yeah.
let's say, the success factor answer that I would say. So I've been responsible of product development from early innovation, development, industrialization, life cycle optimization, and to some extent until the end of lifetime. So the whole spectrum was, let's say, I have experience in the whole spectrum of the product development. I think from the success factor point of view, what do you need? There is a lot of things, but I selected 4. I think the first one, you need to understand what circularity means for product development and from product management, assuming that R&D do the product management as well. So what circularity means, for example, it's for the designer. What kind of guidelines are given to the designer? What kind of material they can select? Renewable, recyclable. What are the circularity design guidelines? So you need to give instruction what it means to be circular.
So maybe a little bit kind of like what Malva said about their checklist.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Then you need to understand where you stand. Because, okay, it's not that you are starting from scratch. So the company are existing for hundreds of years, so you have already an existing portfolio. So how circular is your existing portfolio? So you have this as-is situation, and I think, Anne, in your book, there is a good toolkit to understand basically how circular you really have. But then there is also the ambition. Where do you want to go? And you need to have some kind of something that you can measure where you want to go in the long term, so that you can build the bridge in between the as-is situation and the to-be situation and report the progress along the way. So that's important, not to go blindly into circularity, but to know, okay, where do we want to go and how do you split that in actions? Then there is something I think that, of course, everybody is doing the next point, but I'd like to challenge that. So design for the customer journey. Meaning, of course, when we design product according to specification, but repairability, maintainability, and refurbishment. And from an R&D standpoint, what does it mean designing for the customer journey? It means that instead of being in a vacuum and doing R&D work in function of what the business line needs or the customer need, then there is much more upfront cross-functional work with the manufacturing, of course, the business line still, they are around, the sourcing, and the operation. So I think that this circularity need from the design point of view and the impact in R&D, that might have an impact on the operation model in which you are developing the product. So you involve more people more early in the process. Anne, I think you said in your intro that it is also a very regulated, and the regulations are coming for circularity mainly in Europe nowadays. But because it's new, that means that it's probably updated very often. And you need to be part of those discussions as expert in your own industry. So you need to have your experts that are in those regulatory organizations to understand basically how they are involving and in a proactive way, how they will impact your work. I could spend a lot of hours talking about the rest, but those are, I think, the 4 points that I selected.
Thank you so much, JC.
Sure.
And I actually have a couple of questions that are for all of you panelists. Firstly, let's see who gets to answer, or maybe all of you. What do R&D professionals need to understand from customer behavior and needs? Does Malva or Barry have anything to say to this?
Yeah, I could jump in on that.
Please,
if that's okay, Martha. I think in consumer research, it's really important to identify current wasteful behaviors where value is lost, particularly in the usage phase with your product, brand, service, whatever it may be, and then simplify processes in a way that allows people to make easy choices which extend product value beyond current practice. So it helps people to realize where the wasteful behaviors are and maybe adjust their behaviors so that not only does the product last longer, but that they also get more from the brand experience. And you really need to think about in creating that enduring brand experience, potentially through multiple customers and over time. So understand more about people's life stages and transitions, such as maybe having a baby or your kids going away to university. Those big life changes can have an impact on your product and service choices. And really, something that's different for brands is that they need to try and create multi-generational product and service models which allow your brand to endure and make sure that the product quality is good and that the brand lasts for a long time. So all of that is about really understanding current consumer behaviors and trying to find ways to ensure that the waste doesn't happen in the first place.
Absolutely. Malva, do you have something to say on top of that?
Yeah, I agree very much with what Barry is saying, but I also want to add that I think it's about understanding the customer behavior, but it's also about in the innovation and R&D process about putting the user first when you are designing something. And I think today a lot of the sustainability stories are focusing on production, and we are still relying on this one system, linear system that is out there. But if we truly want to make a change, we need to also change the system towards circularity. And I can just share an example of where we at Houdini have been doing this and putting the user first, kind of. So we have last year opened a store in Stockholm that's called Houdini Circle. And here it's really about the user walking into the store, and the user can choose from the products, if the user wants to buy the garment, if you're using the garment a lot of times, maybe it makes sense to buy it. But you can also rent a garment. If you're going skiing over the weekend, maybe it makes sense to rent it. Or you can have a subscription over several seasons. And you can also hand in your garment to sell it secondhand or care for your garment. So it's really about putting everything on the same place, putting the user in the middle. What does the user need? And the user doesn't maybe even know that they need this, because it's just making it more simple to live your life. It's not necessarily, the user is not necessarily doing it because it's more sustainable. It's just because it's better and more simple, and even to a lower price. So I think putting the user first is very important in creating circular solutions.
I mean, please do bring me this service where I can rent my ski clothing that I might need maybe once or twice a year, and I don't need to pay for the square meters that are very pricey in Helsinki to store them in my apartment.
Yes.
But I at least heard JC here you made some sounds like sort of like agreeing about like people concentrating too much on the production, the sustainability of the production. Am I right? Is
Yes,
that,
yes.
yeah? Do you want to say a few things about that too?
Yeah, well, as already mentioned by both the colleagues here online, this is really, well, we used to measure the sustainability with the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 and the impact, and it's been reporting in different organizations in different ways. And somehow, for example, R&D is responsible of the scope 3, so the product and the energy consumption and all the actions. So now when we move towards circularity, it's kind of consolidated in a higher level, this circularity KPI. So I don't know how really it will be reporting, because it doesn't really belong to any specific organization. It belongs to the corporate level. So it needs to be kind of consolidated in higher level. So yes, it's not only in production like it used to be, or in R&D or in business line. Now it's basically everywhere. So it's touching everything. And that's something new, back to what I was saying before about it really needs people to work together.
And the higher level to understand that it's their responsibility.
Well, yes, definitely. I'll have probably a little bit more to say about that a bit later.
Olli, did you want to add on top of this?
Yeah, I was just wondering with the kind of different industry segment being sportswear or air compressors or elevators, that in the end it probably is related to understanding what is the customer need, what's the customer job that he wants to, or he or she wants to get done with this coat. Is it only to keep warm, or is it also to look good and also maybe to flaunt to your friends that I don't own this, I rent this, or
for the party,
or
the book launch event,
whatever kind of because usually it's not just one. I mean, even in compressed air, it's not just one. It's 20 different reasons why decisions are made in some way and without really understanding. And I'm sure that it's the same with the consumer industry, probably even much more kind of diverse. But if you're not, if you don't know the job that your product does, you won't be able to design a product that is both doing that job and is as circular as possible, because then you might get rid of a feature that actually is then key or critical for that product. So you kind of have to have a holistic view.
So the two of you here in person, what in your view are the biggest bottlenecks in the R&D transition from linear to circular, and how can they be overcome? Easy question.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm slow.
Thank you. I'm going to be blank and probably not make a lot of friends by what I'm going to tell now. So I think it's a balance in between the short term and the long term. So how do you balance the short term game in a company versus the long term? So it's not specifically for R&D, but that's for the company as a whole. And what I mean by that is that when you start to understand what really the circularity in the corporate level means, it is touching a lot of different points, okay? And for example, to what goes to the material usage for the product development, you might be using material that are a bit more expensive, okay? So you're gonna get a higher upfront cost in R&D and in the product cost. Will that be easily accepted by the market? Well, yes, if you create value. If you explain really the value and the customer wants to pay more for the value that you have created, but that's only for the customer. What about the internal peers or the internal stakeholders? I mean, when you come with, okay, I want to use this material, that means that the supplier is not going to be this one, it's going to be this one. And by the way, the manufacturing process has to be revised. So you go back to a lot of investment that have been done in the company, and if you are really serious about this circular level, you might want to touch a lot of things which will require, again, investments. So the second part of the question, quickly to answer, is how do you get that through? Because the circularity is touching so different parts in the company. I think the circularity is something, I really believe that the circularity is something that needs basically to go top down. So it needs to be part of the corporate strategy. It is a priority. It's not a short-term priority. It is a long-term priority, and it needs to be told to the people, and it needs to be followed up how it is applicable. So top down.
Understood. Top down and only.
And maybe to continue not making friends, because I think it's all about rewarding. It's what you get rewarded for, and unfortunately, in especially stock listed companies, you get rewarded for short-term things. There's, I mean, in the industrial equipment segment, the predominant business model is that you sell something and then you service, and then you make 30 or 50, or in some cases even bigger part of your revenue from the service and spare parts, and kind of that's the most profitable part of your business. And now, if you wanted to go kind of in the reduce direction, for example, in air compressors, there's a device which gets rid of condensate water. You can select a component that costs 200 euros, and there are 3 of them in a compressor. But you need to change them every year because they get dirty and they don't function anymore. Or you can spend 10,000 euros and you never have to replace it. Guess how many 10,000 euro condensate range there are on the market? Not too many, because the business model of the company is to make money on the spare parts. So even if the component wouldn't fail, it still gets replaced because it might fail in the near future, and that's just. But the companies cannot change it without their stock price going and everyone getting fired. So that's the reason for me.
Okay, thanks for not making friends. I think we're a little short on time, but I think we can have a few questions also from the audience. Do you have anything in mind? Yes, please. Can you approach and take my microphone?
Hi, I'm Christina, and I work in R&D in the fashion sector. And I would like to have a question to Martha from Houdini. Martha, you mentioned that you are working with take-back programs like reselling, or that you work with renting, that you offer rental services. How do you see economic feasibility of these services? Because I know that it's also a lot of effort to take back used garments and get them back in a state where you can resell or give them to the next owner. So how do you see the trend of the economic feasibility for these programs? And second question, how do you see the trend in a shift of the mindset? Because what I also observe is that still people want to own clothes. Probably it's a different with the skiing outfit, but the trend is more like owning clothes. So how do you see that? What is your take on that?
Thank you so much. Malva, did you get that?
Yes, thanks for a great question. So I think here we are again on the topic of short and long term, and also about the value of resources. So when you look at these kind of circular business models, it's about seeing the value of the natural resource. So at Houdini, we are designing a product with the absolutely finest natural resource that we can find that will make the product last for a long time. And that means that this one product that maybe is used by one user for one weekend, and then it comes back to us, and then it's used by someone else for several years and comes back to us, and then this repeats a lot of time. So the value of the natural resources will create a lot of financial value in the end, because it can be circulated a lot of times. So like it's creating a lot of value financially as well. But of course, it's a lot of work with the setup of how to technically do this. And the Houdini Circle, which is combining all of these business models, was the first one in the world to do this. So we actually had to first look at, okay, how do we create a cash system that can handle this? So yeah, it's a lot of technical things that needs to be taken part of. But when we see of it also short term, but definitely long term, we can see that it's a win-win situation for value creation, both for the planet, but also economically for a brand. And the second question about the mindset is also about what we talked about earlier, about putting the user in the center. And I mean, we see I think all over the world that secondhand is growing a lot. So if you compare 10 years ago, this mind shift, something have happened. So and then we as a brand need to be ready when also the user has changed the mind shift for owning as well, like renting and subscribing. And we can see that it's growing. So rental is definitely the biggest part of these kind of circular business models, because renting a ski jacket is pretty similar to renting your skis. But we can also see that the mind shift is coming, and the other parts are also getting bigger and bigger.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we'd have so many more questions, but honestly, at this point, I just have to say thank you so much for this panel. And a special hello to London and Stockholm. And thank you, Olli and JC over here for this panel discussion. And I'm sure there's much more inside the book, so you might want to purchase that one as soon as possible. So it is time to thank not only the panelists, but everyone attending online through the stream. Thank you so much for coming along and joining us. And the stream will be actually also available in a few days on Ethica's YouTube channel. So if you want to share this bet to somebody else, or maybe watch it again, you're able to in a few days. And also you can order the book through a QR code visible right here. So if you want the physical book, use the code. If you prefer an ebook, here's the code for that one. So for now, thank you everyone who joined us through the live stream, and go and get the book now. Bye-bye.